Calvin, thank you so much for making time for the big question tonight. We are asking, should all those mentioned in the graph list step aside? Talk to us on 22422 and on Twitter using the hashtag the big question. Naming of public officers. Somebody says, naming of public officers following allegations is no basis for stepping aside. Let there be substantive, verifiable allegations to initiate that. And then somebody says here, Nixon Dugira from Kindaruma, yes, basically named or unnamed, as long as you and your conscience reads evil acts of graft within you, get off the track. And Martin says, Munya, please step aside, be investigated. If you're clean, you'll be back, and you will be a hero. How do you... We start with that, obviously, because you've already been mentioned in this report.
The problem with what he's saying is that he does not understand the law. There is nothing like coming back. If you are a governor, you step aside, you have resigned from your office. There is no provision for stepping aside and coming back. You look at the Constitution and look at the law, the ways a governor vacates office, there is no way coming back. Once you leave office, you have resigned. So it's not a question of stepping aside. There is no provision in law. I've looked at the law that is available. There isn't any provision for a governor to step aside, then finish investigations, then come back.
Okay. Mokkomen is also a lawyer. I don't know what you have to say about that.
Well, I agree with the governor. There is no particular specific rule in the law for stepping aside. But you know, stepping aside is a rule of civility, an appeal to conscience, and it's one of the mechanisms that will assist in fighting, in actually avoiding a situation of interference. For example, if you're a member of parliament and you're a member of agriculture committee, if that committee is being investigated, it's only safe if the whole committee is suspended, or you stop carrying out the responsibilities of that committee so that it can allow investigation. The same to PAC. If you are a member of parliament being investigated for being carrying out corrupt activities in a committee, your stepping aside is to allow that committee being investigated. But it does not mean that you are not being investigated for being a member of parliament of constituency X. So your responsibility as a member of parliament and representing that place is not resigned. And let me say this, the very reason why governors must step aside is for the reasons that the governor has given, that you will not lose your position. Stepping aside is not resigning. Stepping aside is not being removed from office. Therefore, giving way, like saying, I've handed instruments of governance to my deputy, I'm taking leave for 2 months to ensure that there is a free and fair investigations in the office so that I do not directly interfere.
Right. And that is not resigning.
It's not resigning.
Well,
so there are no consequences in terms of losing office.
There is no procedure for stepping aside for a governor. And I've explained that. There isn't. But we are pledged, all those who are involved. In fact, I'm signing my letter tomorrow to send it to the Anti-Corruption Commission, that we are ready to cooperate with whatever investigations require, any information, anything. Now, if anybody prohibits them or hinders them from getting the information, let us know. So we are ready to cooperate completely. But we don't see any provision anywhere.
What?
I mean, it's telling a governor go on leave, hand over and go on leave.
I think the point here is
I don't see where. I mean, this war is serious. We all support fighting corruption, but we must follow the law. We hope that this is not a trick, because you have heard even some politicians in the assembly already telling citizens to go and remove governors from their offices, those who have been mentioned. You have heard them at the National Assembly inciting citizens to march to offices of governors to remove them from offices. So hope this is not part of the charade and the campaign to downsize governors that we have been hearing around. But clearly there is no provision in law for stepping aside. Governors are not very powerful people who will make this government not investigate anything that it wants to investigate.
Okay.
And if anybody, the Anti-Corruption Commission can easily tell us, Governor so-and-so is interfering.
Okay.
Then we will know.
Can I come to that?
That's why we have all signing letters. I'm signing mine tomorrow to send them. What information do they require? What do they want me to do? I am ready.
I'll come back to that.
In fact, if they want me to go on leave, if that is what is calling stepping aside, to stay outside the office for a week, I have no problem with that.
Actually,
but there is no
about 2
procedure
months.
that they are calling, stepping aside. I have not.
Let me just put it this way. It is contradiction for the governor to say stepping aside for elected leaders is not there, and stepping aside for non-elected is there. It is not. Both, there is no stepping aside for provisions of law, for stepping aside for a cabinet secretary, nor a governor. It's a rule of civility. It is a principle that is meant to assist to avoid interference. And actually, this is a historic moment. We are moving, we are lifting the standards higher on matters of corruption.
Okay.
And so the question we are appealing all elected leaders to them is this, that this is now, it's a show of commitment. The president has decided that 5 of his cabinet secretaries are going to pave way for purpose of investigation. That is really something big.
Okay.
And governors must take responsibility themselves, because they will not tell us tomorrow, they will tell their CCs to step aside if they don't want to do it when they're being investigated.
Do you agree?
Section 162 of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Act clearly stipulates that, office holders can step aside. But it clearly also says that those who are constitutional office holders whose exit is already provided in law, that section does not apply to them. Because
Do you agree, Governor Munya? You've worked even in the government before, national government.
Yes.
Do you agree corruption has been a major problem in this country?
It is a major problem.
This is an unusual way of tackling it. In fact, every president, every regime has been told to up the game on corruption. You can actually use unusual means as long as you curb this menace called corruption. And I'll read you one text here from James Ogutu in Migori, who says, the journey to clean our country of corruption has started. It is in order that even if the Constitution protects the elected leaders, it is wise, those mentioned, just step aside as a measure of self-responsibility. Don't you think it's an unusual way of finally stopping or curbing corruption in this country? What is the problem with just staying away for 2 months?
I have no problem with unusual, any means.
This is one.
Any means that can deal with this problem, as long as it's not violating the law, I have no problem with it. What I've already explained to you, I don't know what is called stepping aside as far as an elected leader is concerned. Are you saying I go on leave? What are you saying? I mean, what is stepping aside?
Okay,
Can you define it?
What if you are told to go?
Because clearly, if you are employed, you are a minister. You are employed by the president. The president can ask you to leave office for a period, and the provisions are there. If you are a parastatal head, you can do the same. The provisions.
What if you are told
you are elected governor? You leave office, you have resigned. There's no provision like staying aside, handing over. If you hand over to your deputy, deputy
governor, yeah.
You have the next thing is the deputy governor can choose to continue. Yes, under the law. There is nothing like handing over temporarily. There isn't. There is no provision.
I understand the fear.
There is no provision.
They have a genuine fear.
There is no provision whatsoever.
The fear actually is a demonstration of the kind of governance we have at the devolved level. It's a one-man show. So that one person, if he's not there, he believes that if he's not there, everything will crumble. County Executive Committee is an institution. In fact, in the Constitution, they list the functions of County Executive Committee. And so the governor is the one who chairs that committee. But the deputy governor can take over those responsibilities. So there is nothing wrong. Governor travels. When he travels out of the country for a week, 2 weeks, the deputy governor is running the office.
Okay.
He could as well have when the governor of Nyeri, and thank God is in good health now, has been away for more than 2 months. The services,
the deputy governor cannot obstruct. It's only the governor who can obstruct.
One can give way. Yeah, absolutely. One can give way to allow the other person.
Let me ask you something. Yeah. You are in the chair of the devolution committee. You know what happened to Martin Wambora? There was a Senate hearing. There was a procedure in law given for that. You did not ask him to step aside as these investigations were being carried on.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you, you are talking about stepping aside. These governors, stepping aside for this governor is so high. Appearing in a Senate committee is impossible. had Senator Munya appeared in Senate committee, some of the things that we were asking him would have been answered at that point in time. So the point we are saying here is that we could forget about achieving a stage of stepping aside. We could not even achieve a stage of obeying the law as it is from the governor.
But the question, Honorable Murkomen, is some governors honored this summons. They went to appear before the Senate.
Absolutely.
You can say it's all of them. But what they are raising here is issues about law, and they are rightfully doing so, and they're talking about doublespeak, because why didn't Governor Wambora, for instance, why was he told step aside as this process is going on?
Remember for Governor Wambora, he did not even obey the law when the law required that once he was impeached, he went to court to get injunctions. So he did not even want to take responsibility for that, because he was always, running from one court to another. He didn't want to be to obey the legal procedures that were provided for in terms of removal of a governor. But even that aside, for us as Senate, there was a short time between his period of impeachment and the desire to say step aside. So impeachment was just moving fast, like within a week. When we received the impeachment from the other side, it took 1 week to process it. So there was no room to say step aside as we investigate.
Okay, Governor Munya, most people of course talk about whistleblowers coming under or coming from your county government. I mean a specific county government where we have a governor accused. Most of these whistleblowers work for the same county government. Do you believe that some of these governors, it is true that if they remain in office, they can compromise investigations? Will these people still be free enough to give information with this investigation?
This is a fiction of imagination. Governors are very harassed office holders in this country, harassed from every corner. They have not prevented anti-corruption people doing any investigations. There is no agency that has said a particular governor has prevented them from getting any information. Anti-corruption people have been in my office many times, including on this matter they are talking about. They took all the information they required. So to argue that a governor who is already harassed from all corners is going to prevent investigations from taking place is not true. I think there must be other ulterior motives with this idea of insisting on governors setting up. I don't think it has anything to do with investigations.
You have been
I have, for example, been accused myself of a particular matter which...
I can just read that. Yes. Inquiry into allegations of abuse of office and misuse of public funds on fuel, service and repair of private vehicle registration, TCD 385 EAC.
Yes. That's a matter that took place at the beginning of my office. When I came into office, I did not have an official car. I utilized my car for 3 months before I was bought a car. 3 months.
Okay.
Then this car was sent for repairs at CMC. The county government paid the money for the repair of the car. That is the accusation.
So nothing like this happened. You're very innocent.
That is the accusation. The anti-corruption people came to the office. We explained it to them. We gave them all the information. In fact, when you hear investigations required to be done, like in my case, I want to ask what investigations, what further investigations do they require to do?
Okay, Governor Munya,
it was admitted that car was serviced there. County government paid the money. The amount is known. My driver has given the required statement that he drove me with that car for 3 months.
Governor Munya, specifically...
The transition authority said they authorized the use of the car.
You specifically are innocent of any corrupt dealings. As a governor,
yes, I am.
Can you say the same of the 47 governors?
I can't say.
Why are you arguing collectively for all governors not to step aside? This is an individual matter. Corruption is an individual matter. Why can't you? Why do you say all governors are not going to step aside?
I am arguing on the basis of the law that there is no procedure for stepping aside for a governor. I'm not arguing for any particular governor. Now, if any governor wants to resign, it's up to him and his conscience. You are free. In fact, one of the procedures of leaving office in the Constitution is resignation.
I think
I'm just arguing that general point. So I'm not arguing that any governor is innocent.
What about
Everybody
MPs?
will have an opportunity to argue his own case.
What about some MPs and senators that have been mentioned, not necessarily to do with committees? Should they be asked to step aside as well?
Well, if there was a procedure for a governor to step aside, I'm sure the same procedure would be used for an MP or a senator to step aside. But to argue that stepping from a committee is stepping aside from an office of a senator,
not a committee. We're not even. It's
completely ridiculous.
We're talking about an MP who has been accused of corruption. And I'm asking you.
For example, let me give an example of senators. The accusations against them was like Orengo in relation to his position in the past, or when he was a cabinet secretary or something of that sort. So he is not in a position to interfere with that investigation anymore. So you may not require him to step aside from anything. But if you talk about the Committee of Agriculture, they're being investigated for carrying out, covering up certain issues related to Mumias and other places. They are capable of interfering with that investigation. They must step aside from their committees, from the chair of the committee and so forth. For a governor, let me just come. For a governor, they are being accused of what they are directly managing. So it's impossible for them to remain in office while that investigation is being done under them, of officers who are under their watch, of things that are still going on, of institutions that are still managing. It can't be possible until they give way so that that investigation can be credible.
So,
but I agree with the governor that, let me just conclude with this.
Are you telling me a senator who is no longer in a committee is not a powerful citizen when he's still a senator? Are you saying a member of parliament is no longer powerful just because he has quit a committee?
Yeah, he has a point. Or if you go specifics into cases and say who can interfere and who cannot interfere, if you're saying step aside and you're asking the governor to step aside, why doesn't everyone just step aside?
Well, because ultimately, as I said earlier, stepping aside is not resigning.
Exactly.
So
it's the same thing.
If you step aside for a senator, for example, you're telling him what, don't come for sessions?
I mean, you can find a way to.
Yeah, well, if we say don't come for sessions, they can write a letter to the speaker and say.
The point is, for the next 2 months, should they step aside or not? They can find a way to deal with that, whether they shouldn't come for sessions.
Definitely.
So you agree that should happen to them as well?
The only problem is, operationalizing somebody like the governor said, stepping aside is not resigning.
Okay.
That's as a matter of fact. So to operationalize, for example, if we are going for recess for 1 month, yeah. So what will he be doing? Step aside from what?
Okay, we're going to wind up. My final question is, they're saying clearly they're not going to do this because it's not provided in law. Is there anything you can do as a Senate or anybody to compel them to step aside?
No, we have no, citizens of this country have their capacity. I'm very happy with the county assemblies who have told the county assembly leadership, which have told the county assemblies to debate this report. It's up to the county assemblies to initiate processes of ensuring that their governors comply with the law.
Okay.
And if that is not possible, it is also possible for any citizen to petition the courts for their governor to give way, or it's even possible for citizens to petition the governors to get out of office.
Okay.
So there are many other public processes that can put pressure on the governors to do that. But I wanted to appeal to our governors, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, that the governors don't want to come to Senate, they don't want to go to the courts. They're injuncting everybody. Now they don't want to step aside. I don't know if they're waiting for the day of judgment when Jesus Christ comes back so that they can be accountable. How shall we be able to hold our governors accountable if they're resisting every process of accountability in this country?
Well, let me say this. Kenya is a country that is run by the rule of law, and governors, myself included, are law-abiding citizens and should respect the law. If we are given any provision in the law that tells us on what, how to step aside, we would. I would be the first one.
What if you're told to go and live, like you're saying, live for 2 months?
I mean, going live. I can.
For investigations.
I don't know anything called stepping aside.
So if it was changed and governors told to go and live for 2 months,
somebody can go and leave. I don't think there's any issue with that.
Okay.
Somebody can go and leave.
Okay.
If we were told you can take leave for a week for investigation, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
What I have a problem with is a concept that is not defined in law.
Okay.
That may be interpreted to mean that you have resigned from your office and other consequences, especially in an environment, a political environment that we operate in that is so anti-governance, anti-devolution,
okay,
where you can already see leaders, even at the pulpit in parliament, are asking citizens to march to offices of governors who are accused and get them out. And you have heard what the senator is also saying. It's the same euphemism, use other means to get rid of them because they don't come to Senate.
Okay, Governor Munya,
we've gone
thank
to
you.
court. The courts are there for people to go to. That's
Right.
why the courts exist.
Right.
And let's follow the law.
Okay.
Let's fight corruption, but using procedures that are allowed so that every citizen's right is respected.
Thank you very much, Governor Munya, Governor Meru County, Senator Welgeo Marakwet Kipchumba Murkomen. Thank you so much for making time for the big question. Of course, on the big question tonight, we're asking, should all those mentioned in the draft list, should they step aside? Keep talking to us on 22422 and on Twitter using the hashtag The Big Question. We're taking a short break now.